Hey everybody, it's Tracy Wilson here from The Unlock Show. I just want to let you know who we've got on the show today. So pretty exciting guest, Jennifer Neal. She's someone that I've known for quite some time. She is an absolute expert when it comes to being able to attract traffic and claim untapped revenue in your business in the online space. So I want you guys to hang around because on the Unlock Show today, she is going to be delving deep. I'm going to be getting her to unlock all of her juicy secrets as to how she goes about attracting online traffic and claiming that untapped revenue very, very shortly. So hang around because in about 60 seconds, I'm going to have Jen on the show with me, and we are going to be pulling back the curtain wide so that you can see everything that she does to help herself and her clients build the traffic and tap into that unclaimed revenue that is sitting in your business right now. So get yourself a pen and paper and hang around because we're going to see you in just 60 seconds time. Hey, you guys, and welcome to another episode of Unlock. Boy, oh boy, doesn't 60 seconds go super fast? Guess what, people? I have got the amazing Jen Neal. There she is, joining me today on the Unlock Show. So excited to have her here. Who is this amazing woman that I've got on the show with me today? Well, Jen is a self-proclaimed tech nerd marketing expert from way back. And, you know, she's really known these days because she knows exactly what it takes to be really consistent and be able to deliver thriving content through winning strategies and affordable marketing technology. So I want to say, hey, welcome to the show, Jen. It's so awesome to have you here. Love this topic because as you know, on the Unlock Show, we talk a lot about like how to unlock your, your inner genius, how to find the message inside of you that is just waiting to get out there. And often entrepreneurs and business owners, I call it being, like shackled to the unknown expert shackles, like so many experts out there, but they struggle to get their message or their mission out there. And I know that's kind of right in alignment with what you do. So let's talk all things that help people really build traffic and tap into the unrealized revenue that they've got sitting in their business right now. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, some of the things that you've been up to and how you've come to really settle in this space and become, an expert when it comes to driving traffic and finding that unknown or untapped revenue.
Awesome. Well, first of all, Tracy, thank you so much for having me on the show. What an honor. I have enjoyed being friends with you over the years here, and it's so fun to actually kind of engage here online together.
I know, it's very cool. Hey, it's like technology.
I know, right? It's almost like we're half a world apart. And yet not.
We kind of are. You're in America, I'm in Australia, but somehow this technology has a way of being able to bring us together.
Exactly. I love it. Thank you so much. All right. So I have been involved in small business marketing for literally my entire career. I started off in corporate marketing, and then I left to start my own digital agency. And I ran my agency for almost 12 years. And during that time, it was great. I worked with a ton of a ton of other businesses, and we really specialized in the super nerd things. So all the marketing automation stuff that runs the stuff behind the scenes. So Infusionsoft experts, WordPress experts, and all that kind of super nerdy stuff. Then one day, and it's funny because I literally was just reviewing this. My assistant came and she's like, "Hey, did you know that we've been doing Formula Done for an entire year, and for 10 years?" And I'm like, 10 years already? Like, what? Are you kidding me? And instead of being elated, I was like, I had that self-judging, like, this is not the business that I wanted. This is not where I wanted the business to be. I am in that place where, I was able to fire clients and stuff when I wanted and only work with who I wanted, but I was building other people's dreams. And I just realized, I'm like, you know what? I hate this. Like, I'm done with it. So after 12 years, 11 years or so, we just kind of ditched it. And I'm like, you know what? We're gonna figure out, like, just like, I can do all of these things and my team is trained to do all of these things, but just because we can doesn't mean we should. So I really had to focus down and say, where am I going to niche down? And so that's when it came down to it, is I went back and I looked and said, of all the people that I've worked with over the years, those that had really great success, what things did they do and have that were different than those that did not have really great success? And so I just kind of dug into, the data, and it's like, what is it? And the big thing is they had a very strong message and they were very consistent in delivering their message. So it seems pretty simple. But go ahead.
Right. I'm going to say, look, isn't it interesting that after 12 years, it's kind of, you get to this point where you look back, and that should have been like a celebratory moment of, oh my God, because that is, and you should celebrate that too, Jen, because it is very uncommon for businesses to actually survive 5 years, let alone 10 years. So that in itself is a huge achievement. But isn't it interesting that at that point you kind of look back in that rear vision mirror and went, do you know what? I'm looking back, and right at the beginning of this, when I was looking at the front windscreen, the vision I had was vastly different to, or the destination that I had created is vastly different to the destination that I have actually arrived at right now. What the heck happened? But then having that moment of, well, hang on a minute, if I really think about this, because I'm not really enjoying it, but there are elements of what I enjoyed. What were they? Who were those people? What was it specifically that they did that made them successful? And how fascinating that you boiled it down to just like two very simple things, but yet the two, probably the most simplest things, are the hardest things for most to do, right? And like, even for you to go, I was trying to be all things to all people, and then like, hang on, that doesn't kind of work. Like, that doesn't work for them, and it doesn't really work for me either. How do I niche down? How do I kind of get into my zone?
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I literally felt like I was trapped in the 50 First Dates movie. Like, I was just stuck doing that every single time with a new client all the time. And I'm like, no, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this. So yeah, in looking, I mean, and honestly, like, I agonized over this. I know, we all know, and we've been taught over and over and over, the riches are in the niches. You have to niche your business down, like, right? But you start to do that and you get that, like, that fear. You're like, oh, is this really what I want to do? Like, And so I gave myself license to kind of play. And I took some of the other advice and I said, okay, I know that I need to niche down. And I know that a lot of this comes from messaging. And the way that you perfect your messaging is by just doing it over and over. Just start publishing. The whole like publish every day for a year and your life will change.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here I am almost a year later, exactly. And we're teeing up to do our episode 100. And in that time, I have found exactly the path and how to help people. And I've tested our own business first. We've run case studies with other businesses, and it's been like, okay, this is the formula that works. And instead of finding a niche in our audience specifically, what we did is we niched down in the types of services that we're doing. So instead of building all automation and everything on the back end, it's like, no, we're dealing just with content and what happens in your customer lifecycle. So it's been pretty awesome.
I think there's a massive like lesson in that, right? Like, you know, I think you were saying, it's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to have, you know, I'm cutting off my limbs because I'm starting to niche down, and I don't need all of these kind of extra, you know, components to do what I need to do, and becoming very, very focused on just one specific thing, but then narrowing it down and understanding that, okay, so the pathway even for you was like, I know I need to publish. I know I need to get my message out there. I know I need to kind of like be doing that and being consistent with what you're doing. And by you actually doing that yourself, even your own messaging and your own pathway has become clearer and clearer and clearer. And it's interesting because I've found exactly the same thing. Like you get really clear on you know, who it is, who's your dream client, who is it that I actually really want to work with, and then you start crafting your message, you're dialing it in, twisting all the while until it's kind of like cha-chink. That's the message. That's who I am. That's what I need to be speaking about. And all of a sudden, the traffic. We're going to go down that path too in a second, because I want to know, because of what you've done with that, what has the result been in like traffic, and what do we mean by traffic? And I know that there's a couple of different, especially from the world that you and I have been in, like concepts around traffic. So let's help everybody sort of understand that, because that's a really, really big missing piece. And it's almost like the next step, right? That you're clear on who it is that you're working with now. You've got your message dialed in. Well, now you're going to get that message out there. It's traffic.
So totally true. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So you're just gonna have to cut me off because I will talk about this like forever. So when I first started doing this, I'm like, I'm just gonna create a podcast and then I'm just gonna repurpose the crap out of it, and I'm gonna put that stuff all out there, which is kind of a shotgun approach and kind of works. But what I found is, if the idea that you're like, I'm going to go talk about this, and that doesn't necessarily resonate, and it's not like a winner, then what happens is you're repurposing a whole bunch of stuff and you're putting it out there that people aren't resonating with. So then any of these channels that you're putting it onto, whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Medium or wherever you're sharing it, that the algorithm then determines, and I got this from Holly Homer, who I know assisted on your book as well, but you know, she pointed this out, and I was like, oh, so right, that the algorithm says, oh, people aren't engaging with your messaging, so what you're putting out must be spam. So then they start treating you like spam. So I'm like, well, that's clearly not what we want. So how do we prove that what we're doing is actually of value and information and not spam? So in order to do that, I kind of backwards into it and said, how do we create this really great messaging that actually resonates and connects? And so I did some more digging and some more research and found a couple of key things. One is that it always starts with stories. You have to be able to tell stories that are going to relate and cause that emotional connection. And that's when people are going to resonate and follow. And it also starts with, if you think about where all of these platforms, we're talking about online traffic, and honestly, it can be online and offline, but for the sake of this conversation, to keep it simple, let's talk about online traffic. So we're like, this day and age, everybody's online, everywhere. The space is noisy. So how are you going to stand out in that crowd? And how are you actually going to be seen? Well, I know from the space that you and I are from, that there's a large, mostly when digital marketers are like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to sell this thing online. Then we create a sales page and maybe some information about it, and we go get some Facebook ads and we send it to it, and some of them convert and we start making money and we're like, yeah, I made it, right? If we have smart shoppers, and here's my full belief, and you can tell me if you've ever done this. If you've seen an ad or you've come across something, you're like, who is this person? And what are they talking about? I want to learn more before I'm stuck in their funnel, right? Or I want to learn more before they start retargeting me and all this stuff. So you go backdoor search. So where do you go backdoor search? You're going to go to Google, or you're going to go to YouTube, or you're going to go to Amazon. So if you go look at the information and the links that those places are serving up, they are not sending you to sales pages. They are sending you to informational pages, like blog posts. So I was like, all right, we really need to adopt blogging strategies, but no digital marketer wants to be known as or identify as a blogger, like in any shape or form, right? So how do we take advantage of digital marketers creating content on a show, like on Unlocked or on your own podcast or whatever you're doing? But how do you also incorporate blogging techniques so that you are capturing that traffic when people are going to backdoor search you? Does that all make sense?
Absolutely. In our space and like a lot of what we teach, we call that the switch.
Mm-hmm. That's perfect name for it. I love it. Yep.
It's creative.
So yeah, and the thing is, like, the things that we talk about, especially if anything that I don't care what industry you're in, you're going to have some term or acronym or legalese or gobbledygook, whatever that you're saying, that is not like, you think it's completely relevant and what people want. And it may not be what they're actually looking for. So I started a process of mapping out to say, okay, how do we know that the messaging actually resonates? And so, okay, I'll deep dive on this. Okay. So what this really comes down to, if you start to consider content and placement. So if you really start to think about the customer journey, and or traditional marketing, and especially advertising, is going to live in an area where it's like, it's interruption traffic, it's cold traffic, it's people who may or may not even be aware that they have a problem that you can help solve. And you're just hoping that you're hitting the right people and that they're going to get that messaging. But we're talking about cold traffic, right? So when they come into the awareness stage, then they're moving through, they're in decision-making stage, they're in, moving into the buying stage. These are our warm areas and then our hot areas. So if you kind of think of it as cold, warm, and hot traffic, and if you actually, so what, I'm such a visual person. So I actually started mapping this out. And I'm like, okay, if we go through and I say, here's what my audience looks like when they're in the cold stage and in the warm stage and in the hot stage. And then what are their needs? What are their desires? And what are the things that they need to get to the very next step at each one of these stages? Because it's different. Even though the ultimate solution is the same, the thing that they need at that point in their journey is different. So if you map all of that out and then you go through and you say, okay, in terms of my product, program, solution, content, topic, whatever, how am I addressing each of these needs, desires, and steps that they need at these steps? Then once you do that, you're able to also see, okay, when they're in the hot stage, I know that I can get them on a phone call. I can follow up with a text message. I can, it's going to be much more personal. When they're in the cold stage, I need to grab their attention with something that's like really polarizing and attention getting, right? So you start to identify what information needs to be used where. So that helps you kind of identify what types of media and what platforms need to be used to deliver to each one of those different stages. And that then becomes the engine that kind of starts driving the repurposing. And then to like wrap it all back up is you start the whole topic off with matching up and saying, okay, these are the things that I want to talk about. But then we go check with Google and YouTube and say, hey, when I want to talk about this, what are people actually searching for when they're trying to find answers to this? So then that's what we talk about. And then we tell stories about that and we bridge them over our content. Whew, that was a lot. Sorry.
Well, I love that. I mean, what's great about it is that it's a very logical approach. I mean, and you just reminded me, like, for everybody that's watching, you think about this, and I don't know if this is happening to everybody, but it's certainly happening to me. Every week, I'm getting messages from people who want to connect with me through Facebook, right? And so they might start out with, "Hey, I want to be your friend." No problem. That, you know, check them out. And this is actually happening, right? This, I don't know if you guys are doing it now. Same as what Jen's talking about. So someone wants to friend you. The same applies. It's like when we're doing our marketing, we're wanting to friend somebody. It's the same concept. We're wanting to friend them. Come and be my friend, right? So they say yes. Somebody, in this case, somebody's opting into whatever it is that you've offered them. They're saying yes, they want to be your friend. Now, all of a sudden, that person who's friended me on Facebook, all of a sudden, I start getting like crazy messages like, I mean, they're really lovely messages, but like, "Hey, you're beautiful." And it's like, now we've kind of gone into like this weird space. The same kind of applies, right? So the person is now like, I've done a bit of research on them, exactly what you're talking about. I've gone to Google, I've actually gone to Facebook and checked them out. Who are they? Are they legitimate? You know, what sort of person are they? What can I see on their profile? Your audience is doing the same thing, Googling you. What can they see about you? What can they see on your profile? What do you talk about? Are you a crazy person or are you a legitimate person? So that's there's a correlation with that. The next thing is they're then going, like, you can imagine if you then go back to that person who you've now got on your database and it's like, now come and marry me because I want you to buy my product. It's like taking them from, hey, be my friend on Facebook to, hey, do you want to come and live with me in South Africa and marry me. And believe me, when I say that happens in the online, I mean, I have had that happen multiple times. Or people just saying, "Hey, I had one the other day where a guy said, 'Hey, I see you're really busy in here. How about we move our conversation to WhatsApp?'" And I'm like, it's too early in the piece to be kind of taking the person from, "I've just met you," to now, "Hey, come marry me," all in a really short space of time. You will scare the person off, and you've tried to move cold traffic directly to red hot traffic in a too short a space, and therefore you scare the person off. So what you're saying is that you need to understand where that person is at in the journey, meet them where they're at with the right type of content at the right time that is based on the level and the temperature of that relationship at that moment. And then as you move forward, you can warm that relationship up, but also then using very logical, like the tech, you being the tech, geek that you are, like actually using firm data that tells you, hey, this is the type of conversation this is the type of a conversation that's appropriate at this time. And this is actually what your audience is looking for, so that your content is not falling on deaf ears.
Yep, 1,000%. I love the way you created an analogy there. It was perfect. And then to take that a step further, what we do is we look at, the message will always resonate if you're telling stories and you're meeting them where they're at. And then using technology with pixels and opt-ins and marketing automation and all the things that you can do to kind of help guide along that journey. So if you're bringing people in through that process of marketing automation, that's where you get into controlling the traffic. because it's not traffic that you own, it's traffic that you're directing until they're on your list and blah, 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 like that whole thing. But what you want to do is you want to control that traffic in. And the big way to do that is to have that central, we call it the master traffic control site, but it's your authority site. It's when people search you or your brand name or your program names or whatever, that's what they're finding. It's where your blog lives. It's where you're creating all of that content that's attracting people in, so they can live in your world and absorb your content until they're like, you know what? I really feel like I know, like, and trust this person, and I'm ready to take the next step. And then the systems are there to just continue guiding them. That's
like
really all it
creating
is.
that ecosystem, right? That they can like live happily in and move around. And like you say, when the moment is right, when the timing is right, then they'll want to take it to the next level and do more. I want to talk, I kind of want to take this now. I want to go down the path of like this untapped revenue, like lots and lots of businesses. Often when I'm looking at them and I kind of get to peel back the layers of what they've got going on, it's like, man, there's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table and it's sitting right over there. And maybe, you know, we have these blinkers on and we can't even see over there to see the dollars that are sitting on the table. How do you find, like in this scenario, how do we find that untapped revenue in somebody's business?
Oh, great question. I love it. So there are two really big places that this happens. The first huge mistake that I discovered from doing my research and working with clients over all the years is the same thing I talked about, that we're like, oh, I have this new program, and we build a sales page and create Facebook ads and send the traffic over, and like that's it. So if you think about that, a successful Facebook ad campaign, is going to be converting, and I'm talking like overall traffic, and don't yell at me with the numbers. I'm seriously just going with like baseline metrics here, but you can expect about 2%, 1 to 2% of your audience that is being sent to actually like go all the way through and buy the whole thing. And you can literally make millions with that. Mm-hmm. If you think about the other 98%, I'm going to pull a stat out because I'm really bad at remembering numbers, but I believe it's something like, it's either 67 or 76%. Either way, it's a huge amount of the people who saw your information on a Facebook ad. So you already paid to serve up your ad to these people. They are now problem aware. And they're like, okay, who is this person, right? So if they go and search and they can't find anything about you, your business, or this program, they're going to be gone. So you paid for them and you lost them, and they were interested. Then you also have so a lot of times we'll set up the retargeting and stuff like that. Then you have the people that'll come through and they'll actually click through. So you're getting them as a lead or whatever, but they don't end up purchasing. So they're usually, this is the other big mistake, is we will set up a nurture or onboarding or whatever you want to call marketing automation system that's going to handle the leads that came in to look at this program. If you don't have a master traffic controller site that clearly says, here's all the places you can find me, here's all the programs that we have, here's all the ways that I can help you, and you don't have all that information in your emails, then what happens is you paid and you did your nurturing to bring all those people in, and then they're completely unaware of all the rest of your product and programs. It's like we develop these in silos. And it's like, oh no, you don't get to see the rest of my business until you go through this nurture sequence here. I'm like, no, give them all the exposure. So that's the other like really big place that people are missing, because you've paid for that traffic, right? And then really the third place is the people who are already problem aware. So they know like, this sucks and I want to fix this. So they're searching. And that's when it comes back to they're searching for something, but they don't know what to search for. And here's the honest to gosh truth, especially with digital marketers, if I go and look at the organic traffic to pretty much any of our websites, it's going to be very, very low, right? But if you go and you map up, here's what people are searching for, and here's how I can help them. If you find that search volume, Google will literally tell you, here's how many people are searching for this exact term every single month. So if you're one of the people that shows up on that top 10 page, then they're going to find you anyway because they already have a problem and they're trying to find you. They're already like warm traffic. So we need to grab them. And then you don't even have to pay for them, right?
Well, it's that whole analogy, right? Of like almost like creating I call it like creating a traffic jam. It's like the traffic is already flowing. You're just going to go and find out where is that traffic flowing? Where is it running, at high speed, and go and put your thing right there so that they cannot miss it. What's the best, let's help people out with some tools. What's the best like tool to go and, I've got some information. I know I'm going to share on this particular topic, but I'm trying to work out, is this topic going to actually hit the spot? What's the tool that they would use? Your number one tool to use?
Honestly, number one tool, I'm going to say just go straight to Google and type in whatever it is that you're looking for. Scroll all the way to the bottom and Google tells you. Also, people also searched for, and they'll usually give you like, I think 8 to 10 different long tail keywords or like other search terms that Google says, hey, here's other things people are looking for. Grab those topics and write a blog about it. Because Google's like, people are looking for this here. You're like, thanks, I'll take that traffic.
Absolutely. And I love that. There you go, guys. That's just super, super simple. Like today, for example, where Jen's saying, the subject of the topic of today is like how to attract online traffic and claim untapped revenue. I mean, there's no doubt Jen would have gone, what's a hot topic that people are looking for? Everyone wants to know, if you've got an online business, how do I get more traffic? How do I do that? And then secondly, now I also want to create revenue in my business. How do I do that? So those two things that she's just demonstrated are big, long tail keywords where we put that all together. And now we could go and put that into Google and find out, well, what other things are people looking for? And it's as simple as that. Cost you absolutely nothing, but it's going to save you a lot of heartache and a lot of time, and save the fact that you're creating some amazing content, but potentially is falling on deaf ears. I also wanted to I want to go back to this place, Jen. We talked a little bit about earlier on around, because I think this is a big mistake that a lot of people make too, is with creating kind of content that is based on what they think people need, rather than what people, where I'm going with this, don't you? Rather than what people want. And I think this is a huge black hole that people can fall into, because we all know what people need. Like as Jen said, one of the things that people need is consistency, but people are not always looking for that. Like they're not aware that that's what they actually need, even though it's the number one thing that every entrepreneur out there needs to do, because most are distracted by shiny object syndrome. So we can get rid of that, get them focused and get them really consistent on just doing one thing over and over and over again. They become, like Bruce Lee, who can kill you with one chop, because he perfected it over and over. Yeah, he perfected it over and over and over again. So let's talk about that concept of creating what they need rather than what they want, because I think that's a big piece of the content strategy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah. And I love Austin Dixon. I think it was him that referred to it as the chocolate covered carrot. Like you need your carrots, but like we got a little spoonful of sugar to help make that go down. Right. I actually have a technique that I love to use. And I call it the bridge story technique. And so really what you look at is when you're like, okay, I know that I want to create this content because people need to know this. Like they need to know how to, let's go with consistency, right? So we need to be able to produce content more consistently. So I want to talk about that. So what you do is you just keep peeling back the layers and peeling back the layers. So let's just do it. So if we want to do, so why is it important to consistently create content?
Oh, you asked, are we role
yeah,
playing right now?
Go for it. We'll do it.
Oh, yeah, let's do this. Okay, so why is it, well, man, I've got so many things. Gosh, this could go for ages. So why is it really important to build consistent content? Is that the question?
Yep.
Well, I think firstly, one of the reasons that you'd already stated was that when you start creating consistent content, it actually allows you to define and refine your messaging over and over again. Mm-hmm. The other thing that it does is, in my opinion, it improves or increases your confidence and your competence over time because you're getting better and better and better at it. The next thing that it does is it helps to create, we call it the ACE method. You've opened a can of worms here, Jen. So
bring it. Do it.
The ACE method being able to create influence and authority. So that's what it does. It enables you to do that because you're showcasing your skills, your knowledge, and your experience, and laying it out on a table in a very non-intrusive way. Then you've got the storytelling piece, so your content being able to connect with your audience and build connection through storytelling in a way that allows them to be emotionally connected in what it is that you do. And then I think the other big piece is the exposure. It allows you to create a exposure, because one of the things that you mentioned right from the get-go is there's so many people out there that have got really, really cool stuff, really, really impactful things that they could be sharing to help another human being, but often they are hidden. They're like buried deep in the crowd or the sea of noise, and being able to create consistency with a consistent message that's happening on the regular enables you to be seen, heard, and give you the exposure that you need. So anyway, I'll call that a wrap to answer that particular question.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. So I'm gonna pick and dig here a little bit. You ready?
Let's do it.
So if we want to go with exposure. I heard like exposure, confidence, and authority. We could probably call kind of exposure and authority. Now, just a caveat here that for any time you're doing this exercise, there are probably 5 to 10 different paths you could go down, and they could all be right. So we're just going to pick sort of one. So if we wanted to say exposure, okay, so why is it important that an online business have exposure?
Well, if you think, you can keep being the best kept secret in your town, or you can, expose yourself so that more people know about you. If no one knows about you, nobody knows how you can help them, then it's pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to help the number of people that you possibly could. And you're like you talked about that untapped revenue, you are going to have a lot of untapped revenue still sitting on the table, which then leads to a whole bunch of headaches and issues for you as the business owner, because you'll end up constantly in that, trapped and shackled to the unknown, what we call the unknown expert shackles. You're not able to get your message out there. No one knows about you. No one's going to buy your stuff.
Awesome. Okay, this is good. We're starting to peel back some of the layers. So we need exposure because I'm just going to kind of pick one here and hone in, is because we as business owners need to be able to help as many people as we can, or as fit our vision. So why is that important?
Okay, so why is that important? Okay, if you're asking me why that is important, because I think that, my sole mission is to actually help, is to serve in this lifetime. And if I don't do that, then I am doing a disservice to myself, and also potentially to a whole lot of other people that are waiting and needing the assistance that I can give them. So for me, it's a lot about that. It's less about the monetary side of things per se, but more about my contribution to humanity. So that's what it is for me.
Fantastic. Yep, that's fantastic. So see, we're getting somewhere. What I love about this bridge technique is you just keep peeling back the layers until we get to a place where you hit a core value or a core emotion and it just like socks you in the gut and you're like, oh. So all of a sudden, your talk or your presentation or your show or whatever you wanted to do about like why you need to create consistent content, we can actually pull that all the way back to talking about living a happy and fulfilled life and feeling like you are contributing back to society. And
Absolutely.
if you think about that and you hit that emotion and you just like sit with it and then you go, okay, when's another time in my life when when I discovered this core value about myself, or when I discovered this calling about myself, or when I felt this same way, like I wasn't able to like live to my fullest potential. That is the story you tell. And that's the story you lead with. And then you bridge it across.
I love this, Jen, because actually going down this path is what's quite fascinating here is that like the Unlock show is like I'm going, yep, that's why I do the Unlock show, because that has always appealed to my mission and what it is that I'm trying to achieve or, help with in this lifetime is actually, like you saying, helping people live a fulfilled life. It's like my version of that is living an unlocked life, like not feeling like you're living with anything holding you back, that you're able to move forward with clarity, with direction and focus, with confidence about what it is that you are doing in your life right now. So it's quite interesting that you should make that, you should talk about that today. Yeah, Vicky Helm's saying, yeah, contribution. That's a massive value for me, is contribution. So,
and
it centered the show around it.
Totally. And if you have a story of another time in your life, and here's where I like to, if I'm telling a business related story, I'll try to do a case study. Otherwise, I'll tell like a personal story from my childhood or something, because we've all gone through those things. So even if there's a time when you were growing up and you knew that you needed to contribute to something and you couldn't, or the pride and like the immense fulfillment that you felt when you were able to contribute to your highest potential, like either one of those things, if you tell the story around that and you talk about how you felt and what was happening, you describe the visuals, what you're doing is you're conveying that emotional connection, because everybody else has had their core emotions. Everybody else has felt the same way. So if you're connecting with people on that emotional level, and then you tell that story, you're not selling them anything. You're not doing anything. You're just telling about who you are. And then you're like, you know what? This is exactly how I feel about why I created the Unlocked show, because I have a calling to give back. And so then people bridge right across with you, right into from what they want to what they need. And that's how you can create that.
And that's a fantastic, thank you so much. Great, exercise to actually go through and for us to demonstrate how you actually do this. So I hope that for everybody else, you guys followed along with that too. And maybe you were even answering the questions as I was when Jen was asking me, because that's really going to help you to kind of get to the core of who you are, what you're about, and give you some very practical ways to be able to find stories that you can tell. And if you haven't already figured this out, like the last, I'm going to say 4 or 5 shows on Unlocked, there's actually been a very, very common theme that has come up. And it has been story. Every single time over the last, 4 or 5 episodes of Unlocked, that has been kind of like the underlying message from everybody is to create the stories. So, and that's kind of like you say, you call it building that bridge. It's like the story is the thing that builds a connection between you and the person that you are trying to speak to, because they then see themselves in that they can say, oh, that's me too. I feel like that. Yes, Jen, you're talking to me. You're connecting with them at a much deeper level, inviting them into, onto the bridge so that they can walk over it. And then now they're in your ecosystem. Now they're in your world and they want to learn more. The next step is obviously to create that centralized point, that control system, and that we call it the hive, like the beehive that everybody wants to go back to. So it's creating that, and then allowing them to see all the things that you have available, and they can then choose how and where they want to continue to build the relationship with you. I love that. That seems very natural, very logical in its form.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that we can let this technology and all this stuff get in the way, but really we're just talking about like creating connections with humans. So the more that we can do that, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah. And then obviously the other part to this, given, your passion for technology, is also then like using, like, what technology have we got? How can I use technology to really take these conversations to the next level? Maybe even provide some leverage for me so that I'm not having to, do everything, one-on-one, or like you were saying, it was like 51st dates, the same thing over and over and over again. Utilizing technology to remove the need for you to have that first date, 50,000 times.
Right. Yes, exactly. Because the technology, like when you look at how any marketing technology or traffic pixeling websites, any of that stuff is going to help you. What it really should do is elevate your humanness. Like it should just kind of help make you more superhuman. But it's still, the key is human. So you're just using that as a tool to make sure that nobody gets dropped between the cracks, that nobody gets left behind, that everybody feels special. And mix up my biggest word of advice would probably be to just like mix up the media. If you're paying attention to how you can communicate with people at the different points in the customer journey, when they're into hot traffic, you're probably going to have their email, you're probably going to have their phone number, you probably have them in your Facebook group or your Facebook Messenger group. So do you want to have an automated outbound voicemail? Or do you want to have a text message or a messenger bot or something? But don't think that you need all of them at one time. All you need is to just like know that it's helping to support you in your messaging and your connection. And the way that you know that, and I will hammer this, we do not look at numbers as digital marketers, but you aren't going to know if anything is working or helping or supporting or anything unless you're actually looking at your numbers. So look at your numbers, find out where your holes are, and those are the gaps that you start to fill. And just one at a time. Don't let it overwhelm you.
Yep. And, I love that too, because like you say, often we don't, but the evidence is in the figures, right? It's like you look at those numbers, work out what is it that you're going to measure? How are you going with all of those? Because often we just kind of go along blindly and hope for the best, but, spending that time to really plan them out, and then actually, what do they say? What gets measured gets done. So, when you measure them, you know that it's getting done, and you can then identify where, for using Vicky Helm's words, where's the holes in the boat? Where are they, and what are we going to do to plug them up? So, it might be using a piece of technology or a system with technology to support it, to actually fill that gap in the boat so that you're not consistently leaking out everywhere, which is a really, really important thing, because like you mentioned earlier, there's no point kind of spending all that money on the front end, driving the traffic to whatever it is that you've got, and then you're putting them into a sieve instead of a very well sealed bucket, which is no good for anybody, because you're going to have to pay for that over and over and over again in so many different ways, not just in your back pocket. So I think, look, we've covered off so many things today, like making the most of your I want everyone to kind of sink into all of this and just understand like the gems that Jennifer has dropped today, because your content and the efforts that you put in, you want to make sure that the effort you're putting in is actually translating to a result at the back end. And she's giving you some very practical and specific ways of being able to ensure that the content you create is actually going to be spot on. It's going to connect with the right type of people who are ready and waiting and willing to hear what you've got to say. The next being that directing the traffic, and then being able to ensure that you shift that traffic from traffic that you've, we call it borrowed traffic, to traffic that you now own, and allowing people to come, meet them where they're at, but allow them a central point, that central hub that they can go to. They can continue to have that conversation with you. And then she's also given you a few gems as to, hey, look over there, there's some money on the table and you can simply go get that right now. So she's given you some very practical ways of being able to do that. So I want to say thank you so much to her for being here today and dropping just an amazing amount of information and gems. And I also, before we wrap today up, I just want to give her an opportunity also to add anything else. Like, is there any other messages or information that you would like to share with our audience today that you think we haven't covered?
Awesome. Thank you. So just like Tracy mentioned, we are learning as we go. So I am actually my own case study right now for a month. And so follow along, and you can find all of our links and stuff at the Virtual Gen. But we are practicing our own. Yep, there it is. We're practicing our own process here, and repurposing our content, targeting our messaging, and we're going to run this for a solid month. We're giving away insane, amazing tips, ebooks, Amazon cards, all sorts of fun stuff, just to kind of help get involved. And then we're going to be doing a workshop in April where we will reveal our results and also teach you how to do the exact same system. So follow along if you're interested, and love to have you.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, Jen. And like we said, guys, if you want to, you want to find more out about Jennifer Neal, then you can head on over to the Virtual Gen with 2 N's, and make sure that you check her out there. And you can do the deep dive. You can go and see what Jen's all about. And if you so wish to, I'm sure that you'll find yourself somewhere in Jennifer's world. But I want to say thank you so much for being here today. On the Unlock Show, we're going to continue to share all things. We're going to be pulling back the curtain, unlocking all the secrets to building a fulfilled life, living your life unlocked, particularly when it comes to digital marketing, particularly when it comes to finding your voice and creating your own, what we call anchor platform, to enable you to share your message in a very unique, very beautiful way that doesn't feel salesy, that doesn't feel sleazy, that allows people to enter your world in a very natural way so that you can continue to have the conversation with them. So if that's what you want to do in 2021, then I would encourage you to continue to watching the Unlock Show, and I'll make sure that I continue to bring to you guys some amazing guests. And then on Friday, we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the concepts that the guest has spoken about. And if you so wish to, you can go check out, go and check me out too. You can go to my, what did you call it? Like the central control panel, being tracymwilson.com. Go and see my control panel, and you can see what Tracy is all about and what it is that I'm doing these days and how I go about helping people find their voice and create massive visibility, influence, and authority for them in their businesses. So I want to say thanks so much for joining me today, everybody, on another episode of Unlocked. You're going to see me back here, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, at 10 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time. For those of you in the US, this might have mucked you all up, because I know that you've all had a time zone, so like a daylight savings change. So I believe that I'm now an hour forward for you guys. So just check your diaries and make sure that you know what time the live show is on. 10 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time is the time that we go live. So I want to say thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back here again, 10 a.m. Brisbane, Australia time on Friday. Until then, live your life unlocked, because as you know, there is just no other way. See you all. See you on Friday. Bye for now.